There's a kind of pain that never makes a sound. It doesn't scream. It just sits in your chest for years, tightening, like you're breathing through a straw. That's what it feels like to grow up in a family where you have to become the healer just to make it through the day. Narcissistic parents don't want you. They want a reflection of whatever version of themselves they're trying to protect. And if you're naturally empathetic, wired to feel deeply, then unfortunately, you're the perfect match for their needs. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." But here's the real question. How many people even know they're hurting? How many realize that what they call family might actually be an emotional cage? This video isn't for people who've never questioned their parents. It's for the ones who felt drained from playing the ideal child. The ones who were taught that love means staying quiet, staying small, and fixing everyone else, even when it breaks you in the process. But if you've ever caught yourself thinking, what if I'm living a life that isn't actually mine? Then you might be getting close to what Jung called the shadow, the place where real freedom begins. So what is an empath really? I didn't know I was one until I hit a wall. Not the kind of burnout you get from overworking, but the burnout that comes from living inside other people's emotions. If someone was sad, I felt it in my body. If someone was angry, I felt responsible. There were days I couldn't even tell whether I was happy or just pretending to be, so no one else would feel uncomfortable. Growing up, I thought it meant I was sensitive, mature, considerate, but now I can name it for what it was. I was never given permission to be myself. An empath, at least the way I understand it now, isn't a saint or a soft-hearted angel. It's someone who grew up in an environment where love was inconsistent, so they learned to survive by tuning into everyone else's feelings instead of their own. If my parents were upset, I felt like I had to fix it. If my siblings argued, I felt guilty. And when I got older, I loved the same way, emptying myself out so other people could feel okay. It took collapsing inside a toxic relationship for me to see the truth. Feeling someone's pain doesn't mean you're responsible for healing it. I don't have to save anyone anymore. The first person I needed to save was myself from a role I never signed up for. So how do you know if you're an empath? If you often feel exhausted for no clear reason, there's a good chance you've been carrying other people's emotions without realizing it. I'm saying this after years of looking back at my own patterns, living in a constant state of being pulled into someone else's mood, reacting to their needs as if they were my responsibility. It's a familiar way of living for anyone who grew up in a home where your own feelings didn't matter. So instead of learning to listen to yourself, you learn to read everyone else just to survive. There are a few signs that became obvious to me. You feel uncomfortable in crowds and can't explain why. You don't know how to say no without feeling guilty. You feel like you have to help even when you're running on empty. You feel ashamed for setting boundaries. And the biggest one, you assume everyone else values empathy the same way you do. You think, surely everyone knows how to put themselves in another person's shoes. But no, that's the first mistake. And it's the same trap that leads empaths straight into relationships with manipulative people. When an empath meets a narcissist, things rarely start with pain. They start with connection, a strong one. They make you feel special, needed, important. But it doesn't take long before you fall into a spiral, feeling like you're never enough. No matter how hard you try, something always feels wrong. Your emotions get dismissed. When you're sad, they call you too sensitive. When you're upset, they say you're overreacting. And the worst part is, you start to believe it. You feel responsible for healing them. They act this way because they're deeply wounded, you tell yourself. Carl Jung warned us, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. But the problem is, you haven't even had a chance to understand your own darkness before getting swallowed by someone else's. And here's the dangerous part. You don't recognize it as a toxic relationship because it comes wrapped in something familiar, that feeling of having to hold everything together, the same emotional posture you learned in your family. It doesn't feel foreign, it just feels wrong. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." If you don't see these patterns in yourself, they'll run your life like a script you never agreed to. And the cost of that innocence can sometimes be your entire life. And then one day, not because you suddenly got smarter, but because you're just too tired, you start sensing something is deeply off inside you. It's not a pleasant awakening. It's not, I'm hurt. It's, I'm letting this hurt keep happening again and again, and I don't even know why. That moment usually doesn't come with warning. Maybe it's after a small argument. Maybe it's after being blamed for something you didn't do. Maybe it's when you break down crying and the other person stays cold, and instead of turning against yourself like you always do, for the first time in your life, you wonder, what if I'm living inside a game I never wrote the rules for? And that's where awakening really begins. Not because someone enlightened you, but because you finally can't stand abandoning yourself one more time. You start to see a harsh truth. Not everyone feels empathy the way you do. Not everyone feels guilty when they hurt someone. Not everyone wants to heal. Some people only know how to take. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And you've done everything to save other people's souls while forgetting your own. That's when you learn a simple but painful lesson. Kindness, when given to the wrong place, becomes fuel for the wrong things. You're not helping anyone when you're burning yourself down to keep them warm. And when you finally turn that energy back toward yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of survival, that's when real healing begins. Quietly, without applause, without anyone noticing. But it's the first time you choose you. Waking up doesn't mean you escape immediately. For someone who lives by intuition and emotion, an empath awakening isn't some magical snap. It's more like a slow, dull ache, like a flickering light in a cluttered storage room. You start seeing the mess, but actually cleaning it means facing layers of dust that have been piling up for years. I call these the transition phases. There's no clear order, no highlight reel, just small steps, sometimes backward, sometimes numb, but steps that slowly move you away from the old place, the place where you lived your whole life for everyone else. And here are the 10 steps that I and many people like me had to walk through. Not perfect, but real. First, stop feeling for other people. Empaths are used to carrying other people's emotions as if they're our own. But eventually you realize, this sadness isn't mine. It belongs to my mother, my father, or someone I kept thinking I had to carry. And you start learning how to put it down. Not easy, but it's the first step. Second, stop caretaking people who refuse to grow up. You once believed that if you were good enough, patient enough, they'd change. But then you learn, some people don't want to heal. They just want someone standing there to clean up the mess they keep creating. Carl Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And you realize, because you were once left behind, you kept trying to save people who never wanted saving. Third, set boundaries. Clear, non-negotiable ones. Not to fight anyone, but to survive. You stop letting people walk in and out of your emotional space. You learn to say no. And for the first time, you know what it feels like to stand up for yourself. Fourth, bring your kindness back home, to yourself. You used to think caring for yourself was selfish. Now you understand, if you're drained, you can't help anyone anyway. Self-care stops being a sin. It becomes an act of kindness, toward yourself and toward the people you truly want to love. Fifth, stop reacting to the old tricks. You used to crumble under guilt trips, passive-aggressive silence, or the blame that came wrapped in concern. Not anymore. Not because you've turned cold, but because you finally see them for what they are. Old tactics designed to keep you in an old role. Sixth, minimize or cut off entirely. Some relationships only continue if you agree to be worn down a little more every day. So you stop. Low contact or no contact isn't a lack of love, it's refusing to live inside a cycle of pain. This isn't revenge, it's survival. Seventh, their power starts to crumble. When you stop reacting, they lose control. They may rage, guilt trip, or beg, but you finally see the truth. The person who once scared you never had real power. All they had was noise. And you stay steady, silent but steady. 8th, you reclaim your own voice. No more mirroring, no more shrinking, no more staying quiet just to keep the room peaceful. Now you speak because you need air. You start saying your own name again. Not so others remember it, but so you don't forget yourself anymore. 9th, you recognize your own worth. You don't need approval to feel deserving. You don't need usefulness to feel lovable. Jung said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And you begin to see you are worthy even when no one needs you. 10th, you choose peace. Not because you've closed your heart, but because you understand this now. Real love doesn't demand that you bleed for it. You once held on to relationships at any cost. Not anymore. Now you hold on to yourself. I can live without a relationship. What I can't live without is peace in my own mind. The scariest part isn't being used by someone else. It's realizing, after so many years, that you traded pieces of yourself just to hold on to a kind of love that was never real. But truth, even when it hurts, is still a gift. Because once you finally see it for what it is, you finally have a chance to build a different life. One where you no longer have to sacrifice yourself just to feel loved. And if all of this feels true to you, the exhaustion, the awakening, the long road of healing, then maybe you're not the only one. Leave a comment. Nothing long, just one line. I understand. Sometimes that's all it takes for someone out there to feel a little less alone. And if you made it all the way to the end of this story, then you should probably watch the next video, when the empath realizes family was the first narcissist trap. Because sometimes the first trap carries our own last name.